morning. I want to start by taking a quick survey. How many people in here have an Apple Watch or smartwatch? Raise your hands. Or how many have an iPhone or Samsung or some other smartphone? I want you to estimate how many alerts you get in one day.
None. I'm hearing impaired. I have it turned off.
That is one way to do it, actually. So we get messages and headlines and calendar pings, game scores. Actually, that's a big one for me. A buzz claims our wrist or a chime lights up the screen on our phone. And each alert says the same thing. It's time to do something. And each vibration, it hijacks the moment that follows. We scroll, we reply, and then we move to the next ping. And by nightfall, we have responded all day. Time owns us, but we often do not steward time. The question before us is simple. Will technology set the rhythm, or will God? So last week, we began this series on intentional living, a Benedictine path, with the concept of attention. We practiced a 1-minute pause or 5 minutes of silence during the week. So look back. Look back over the week. Did you find time to sit in quiet? And if you did, what did you notice in your body or in your mood? And if the practice slipped, that's okay. One of the things we're doing is this intentional living for a long time because it's very possible that some of these are going to slip, but you have plenty of time to come back to them. All of the practices are going to build on each other, so it's never too late to go back and say, oh, I should do that. And so if the practice did slip past, you can start today. A single pause is the beginning, and it does the work. And the door to attention still remains open. But attention must rest on stable ground, and that ground is time. If time rules us, attention fragments. If we place time under God, then attention holds. And so today, we're going to talk about placing time under God. So in today's gospel, we're told that Jesus sets his face to Jerusalem, and he refused every delay. Jesus is preparing for what is to come, what's coming next, his trial, his cross, his death, and then resurrection. He is on a mission. In seeing Jesus' determination, we learn two different things. One, the mission has a timetable. And two, nothing is going to distract him from his journey. So Scripture presents time in two different layers. The first is chronos, and chronos measures sequence. Seconds, hours, season. It's time as we know it, right? It's the time we keep on our watch. Kairos is a different kind of time. Kairos it's a name for those moments that God pushes us for a response, where God shows up and says, are you there? Let's go. So creation blesses both of these layers. There was evening and morning, said Genesis, marking chronos. And then Sabbath crowns the sequence of creation, revealing kairos, a holy pause where divine life meets human rest. So the prophets, they warn when Israel forgets this rhythm. Amos cries against merchants who cheat waits to hurry the new moon's rest. They have broken time, but Jesus restores it. He heals on the Sabbath to show that rest and mercy are not rivals. He keeps watch at dawn to pray, and he commands his followers to wait in Jerusalem until power from the Holy Spirit arrives. He wakes early for prayer, teaching that chronos must open to kairos each day. Time in his hands becomes holy, becomes a sacrament. St. Paul speaks of redeeming the time. This phrase means buying back lost minutes and restoring them to God's economy. Redemption begins when the disciples admit that hours are not private property, but they are a shared trust. And this means that time is not mine to spend however I please. Every hour is loaned to me by God. and it has value for God's work and the good of others. And when we start seeing our schedule as something entrusted to us, rather than as just our personal property, we can begin to redeem time. We can invest it intentionally, we can align it with God's purposes, and allow it to serve the needs of the wider community. And we can allow it to give us restorative rest. When we treat time as a sacrament or as holy, each minute becomes a vessel of grace. Chronos, the ordinary flow of hours, invites a continual readiness for kairos. Those charged instants when God summons surfaces in a conversation or in a problem to solve or an impulse to pray. Sacramental time trains us to expect God not only in worship, but in staff meetings, in traffic delays, and in kitchen chores. The clock no longer is a rival to holiness. It is a frame that lets the holiness take shape. So redeeming time, then, is an act of stewardship and justice. When we budget hours the way that we steward money, we resist cultures of hurry that exploit workers, erode relationships, and squeeze contemplation to just the margins. We return stolen minutes to neighbor love, we honor rest, and we delight in Sabbath rest. That restoration begins with small, deliberate choices. It can be just a pause at noon. It can be one phone silenced at dinner, preferably all the phones silenced at dinner. One evening that we have reclaimed from endless scrolling. So Benedict, we're looking at the rule of Benedict during this series. Benedict treated time as holy ground. Each hour carried an invitation from God that asked for a faithful response. A steady rhythm forms a person towards God and away from self-absorption. Yielding to a set pattern teaches humility and stability. Through the plain course of ordinary days, God shapes a community into a life that reflects Christ. Benedict turned reverence for time into a concrete rule. Chapters 8 through 20 in the Rule of Benedict assign psalms to 8 prayer offices that ring through both the day and the night. Chapter 41 moves meal hours with the seasons so that work and worship can stay balanced. And chapter 42 locks the monastery into silence after Compline, the last prayer service of the day. And then chapter 48 gives daylight to manual labor and to sacred reading. Benedict had a lot to say about time. He created schedules so that the monks would not waste their time on idleness or be so busy planning that they were not able to be present in each moment. Routine can be our friend. Chapter 43 and 47 order everyone to drop their current task the moment the bell sounds for prayer. No matter what they were doing, when this bell rang, they stopped and they went to prayer. They didn't finish the next paragraph. They didn't do one more whatever. They just went. And this rule trains the body to place God above productivity. It frees the mind from the illusion that any task is too important to pause. It unites the whole community in a single act of obedience so that worship begins with one heartbeat. And over time, that simple drop and go, it shapes reflexes of humility and trust. The monk learns to let work rest in God's hands and to return without resentment when the office ends. The bell becomes a teacher. First things first. And God defines what is first. So, how do we, like Benedict and his monks, reclaim time as holy ground? And how do we steward time for God's purpose and for real rest? First, we name the distractions. Every ping on our wrist or every notification on our screen is a tiny bid for attention. But we are not slaves to algorithms. I'm going to say that again. We are not slaves to algorithms. We can silence what steals our focus and choose, and instead to listen for a deeper call, the kairos moments where God is speaking. And second, we have to build a rule of life around this. It won't happen by accident. Benedict didn't leave time to chance. He structured it around prayer, work, and rest. We don't need to adopt the monastic rigor, right? We don't have to go 8 times a day to prayer and follow the Benedictine rule exactly. But we do need to decide how we will spend our time. Maybe it's things as simple as taking time in the morning when you wake up to pray or to read a psalm. Engaging in a nightly examine where we stop and say, where did I see God today? Where did God show up in my day? Or taking a Sabbath hour or a whole day where you just step off the treadmill of productivity. So you can decide what your pattern should be, but if you don't decide, it will be decided for you by what the world deems urgent or entertaining. So don't leave it to happenstance. Make a plan and stick to it, even if it's a simple plan. And then third, we surrender our illusion of control. The Benedictine bell, it didn't ask permission. It just called, and the monks obeyed. And we too must learn to just drop our tasks when God interrupts. The email can wait, and the text can be answered later. The meeting can pause for prayer. Because time is not ours, it is God's. And when we release our grip, we find something surprising. There's always enough time. When I was in law school, there was this temptation to say that there was not enough time to do my morning prayer or my morning time with God. I mean, it was probably the busiest time of my whole life. And it just felt rigorous and like, well, it's okay to skip that. But what I found, and I was always amazed, that when I kept my morning routine with God, I always felt like I had more and not less time in that day. And so this week, I'm going to invite you to do one thing. Let 1 or 2 bells ring in your life. Set some alarms for yourself. Pick some times throughout your day and just set a couple of alarms. It can be a morning bell, pick a time that works for you, but read one psalm or the collect of the day. Set a midtime bell and just say the Lord's Prayer. Or you can go back to the practice of silence last week and set your midday bell, and when it rings, take that moment of silence, 1 minute, to be still. An evening bell, name one clear gift of the day, a place you saw God show up, and give thanks. And then I actually like this one the best, and it is probably the hardest for me, is a night bell. And when the night bell goes off, breathe slowly, trace the cross on your forehead, and turn out the light, and go to sleep. So pick one or all of these, but when the bell sounds, obey it. You will most likely be in the middle of something else, but that's precisely the time to drop what you are doing and answer the call of the bell, because you trust the one who holds all time. Jesus has set his face towards Jerusalem, undistracted, because he knew that his time was in his Father's hands, and ours is too. So let us redeem it, not with hurry, but with holy attention.